Hi friends! Welcome to episode 29 of the Sweet Sparrow Knits podcast. My name is Julie and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Sweet Sparrow Knits, and you can find my hand-dyed yarn and my hand-woven tapestries and wall hangings on Etsy at sweetsparrowyarns.etsy.com. So happy Vlogmas, happy Vlogmas! It is December 1st. It is the first day of Vlogmas, and I am participating in Vlogmas again this year. So I decided it would be a good idea to go ahead and also record a podcast because I don't think I can fit all of my knitting info into Vlogmas. So I'm going to share it with you here. My little cat Murphy is joining me as I'm recording. Hi. Hello. So if you hear any squeaking, meeping, purring, it's this little guy. And my other sweet kitty, Coco, is taking a nap over in my big round chair. So I don't think he'll be making an appearance because once he's asleep, he's pretty much out. Can you hear him purring? I don't know if you can. Speaking of noise, actually, so my steam heat radiator is going, which is great because it's chilly out and it's nice and cozy in here. But you might hear a little bit of hissing, perhaps some clanking, and then my neighbors who live behind that wall moved out yesterday, and there is some construction happening in that apartment. I did do a test to see if you could hear the construction on the recording, and I couldn't hear it, but hopefully you won't be able to hear it either. So I guess let's jump right into projects, which is difficult because I'm holding a little Murph. Hi. He's such a sweet boy. First, we have a project that has been going on for quite some time. This is the Advent self-striping sock yarn from last year's The Cozy Knitter Advent Calendar with a toe in Sweet Sparrow yarns in the Dusty Rose colorway. This is still the first sock. This is my dying knitting, so anytime that I'm waiting for pans to heat up or waiting for the sink to fill or just any of those tasks that I can't really move along any faster, waiting for speckles to be set, anything like that, I pick this up and I put a couple rounds on it. I think the reason that I'm not reaching for this more often is because I have it on two 16-inch circulars, which used to be my preferred method for knitting socks. However, I started using the Addi Flexi Flips on other pairs of socks, and I just really prefer that. I think I don't reach for these that often because, as Jacqueline would say, too much faffing about with the cables. So I think I'm going to get myself another pair of Addi Flexi Flips so that I can have more than one pair of socks going at a time and actually enjoy knitting them a lot more. But this yarn is super pretty. I'm past the first repeat. I believe there are 2 repeats of the 24 stripe sequence in each 50-gram skein. It was broken up into 2 50-gram skeins. So the repeat goes from here all the way up to here. I haven't decided if I'm going to make it through the entire second repeat or whether I'm going to end the socks before that. I find this yellow and red a little bit jarring, although it actually does not look that way on the camera. It looks a lot more cohesive, but so I don't know whether it would be better to have a second repeat of this red and yellow combo and whether like having the second one would make it stand out less on the sock, or whether I want to end the sock before I get to that combo. So I don't know. I'll probably knit up to that combo, and then if I don't like it once I've knit it, I'll just take out those 2 stripes and add in the ribbing for the cuff, which will also be in Dusty Rose, and the heel will be too. I am knitting these with an afterthought heel, so I will cut into them after they're done. I am thoroughly enjoying this next project. This pattern is the Beanie or Slouch Hat by Mina, the Knitting Expat, and you can find it on Ravelry. It's a free pattern, and I am knitting this out of Sweet Sparrow yarns in the colorway Corner of Your Heart, and I am holding a skein of my new Puffin base, which is this lovely slub yarn, which has such beautiful texture, together with a skein of my feather mohair base. And together, the heat just really started hissing away, so I hope it's not too loud. Together, these 2 yarns make a beautiful textured fabric with a beautiful halo. Oh, I just love this. This hat is actually going to go to my mom. As soon as she saw it, she said, "Can I have that?" And she never asks, just, you know, straight out for something I'm knitting like that. So, of course, I mean, she's my mom and she's so knit-worthy. She actually called me today to tell me that she was wearing her yellow hat that I knit for her last year for the first time today. It was its first wearing of the season, so that was very exciting. And how do you not knit someone another hat when they call you to tell you that they're wearing the first hat that you knit them? So I'm really enjoying this. Having the slub texture keeps a stockinette hat really interesting, and it's exciting to see the little slubs come up. I would like to finish this in the next week or 2, maybe? We'll see. I really want to get it done for my mom before Christmas. My next work in progress has been on the needles for quite some time, but, well, let me show it to you and then I'll talk about it. This is the Ramona cardigan by Elizabeth Smith. There, you can see it a little bit better. I'm in the middle of a row, as per usual, so it's a little bit scrunched on the needles, but I love this cardigan. I think it's going to be so cozy. I can't wait to wear it. And I am knitting this out of beautiful brown merino from Vat & Kill Fiber Mill, which I purchased on the Farm and Fiber tour last year, I think, maybe 2 years ago. This was being sold as a seconds yarn because it does have little pills in it, but that really doesn't bother me. I can just put a gleaner to it at the end of knitting it. Not a problem. It's very pretty, very squishy and sheepy. It definitely still has some lanolin in it, which I find very enjoyable. It smells really good. It has that great farm yarn smell, which I love. And it feels so good on my hands. My hands get quite dry in the winter because I am plunging them in and out of water quite a lot while I'm dyeing. If I'm rinsing skeins or if I'm wringing out something, it's pretty tough on the hands in the winter. So having the lanolin in this yarn feels so good. I have 3 more skeins of this yarn, and I am almost ready to start the waist ribbing, or the hem ribbing really, on the body. So I think what I'm going to do after that is knit the button bands and the neck band, and then I can just make the sleeves as long as I have yarn for. I think I should be able to get probably 3/4 length sleeves, which is perfectly fine because that's kind of what I go for anyway. I push the sleeves up on all of my long sleeve cardigans, so I may as well just knit it 3/4 sleeve. But we'll see how much I can knit based on how much yarn I have. I think I'm only on I think I'm only on the 4th skein, maybe. It's very hard to tell because I've been spit splicing my joins, which is great because I don't have ends to weave in. But yeah, I'm only on the 3rd or 4th skein, so 3 more should get me decent length sleeves. So cozy. It was supposed to snow here today, but it looks like it just turned into rain, which is still cozy. Not as cozy as snow, but still cozy. I put up my Christmas tree yesterday, which you will have seen if you watch my Vlogmas. Well, I guess you'll actually see the podcast before you see the Vlogmas because I'm going to edit the podcast today and post it, and my Vlogmas will not be up until tomorrow since today is the first day of filming for it. But you will see on the Vlogmas that I put up my Christmas tree yesterday with my family, and it's really cozy in here. I'm going to just have a very cozy, snuggly day indoors. I'm going to work on my crochet granny stripe blanket a little bit, and I'm going to do some weaving. It should be really nice. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the day. So sleepy. It's exhausting being the Murph. My last knitting work in progress is a sock that I am knitting for my boyfriend. This is the first sock of the pair, and I am knitting the Blueberry Waffles sock pattern out of my wood stove colorway. This is on my House Wren tweed base, and I really love how this color knits up. It's just so cozy. And then the toe is my Owl base, which has yak in it, in the Pippi colorway, which is a beautiful deep red. And then I have a pancake progress keeper on it, which I put on there to mark the front because, okay, for some reason, so I didn't have a waffle progress keeper, so it seemed logical to me to use a pancake because that was the closest thing to a waffle that I had on a progress keeper. This is how the yarn looks in plain stockinette. And in the waffling pattern. I finished the first pair of socks that I knit for my boyfriend pretty recently, a few weeks ago, and he loves them, and that is so gratifying. And as we all know as knitters, there is nothing that will guarantee that you receive more knitted items more than being very enthusiastic about the knitted items that you have received. And John wears his hat and his socks and his mittens, and his dog Reggie wears the sweater that I knit for him, and they both wear them with great aplomb, so they're very knit-worthy, both of them. John described putting on his first pair of socks when I had him try them on, so I knew when to start decreasing for the toes. He described it as a hug for his heel and said that he had never felt that with socks before, which was just the way to my heart, of course. I am knitting these toe up, and I will be using Mina Phillip Knitting Expats. I forget how exactly she words the pattern. I think it's just her German short row heel, which is included in her vanilla sock pattern. I found it very easy to work, and I think it's going to be my go-to heel because I don't enjoy doing gusset increases, but I have found, which you'll know if you watch the podcast for a while, I found that I just don't feel motivated to go back in and put in afterthought heels. So I think these short row heels are going to be the way that I knit my socks from now on, especially because it's quite easy to put in a contrast color heel, which I really like. I think that's a really cute look. And my last work in progress that I'm going to share with you today is my granny stripe blanket. I am moving and grooving on this blanket. I did not work on it for months. And then I just got the urge and I picked it back up. And in the last maybe 2 weeks, I've added 2.5 inches perhaps. It's from where that progress keeper is, and this progress keeper is so pretty. This is from my lovely friend Maria, who is Woolen Forest on Instagram, and who has just opened recently the Forest Charm shop, where she sells beautiful progress keepers. I would really love to finish this blanket by the end of 2019. I have about 2 feet left to go on it. My blanket is enormously wide. It's large enough to cover a queen-size bed in width, with some overhang at the sides, like probably a good 1.5 foot of overhang at each side. It is enormous. And I would like it to be deep enough to cover from feet up to chest when sitting on the couch. That's my barometer for when this will be big enough. So that should be about 2 more feet, and if I add 1 or 2 rows on this every day from now until the end of the year, I think I could do that. Especially if I add 2 rows a day, that would be awesome. Then I could definitely do it. I'm not going to push it too much though, because it'll be done when it's done, and when it is done, I will start another one. So I'm very, very happy with how this is looking. I can't raise my arms up any higher, but you get the idea. It's super cozy. It's very warm. A couple nights ago when my mom was here, we were going to just sit on the couch and watch Chopped together, and I was going to crochet on my blanket, but I was too tired to actually work on the blanket, and I just used it as a blanket, and it was extremely comfortable. So I'm really looking forward to having this done and being able to curl up under it on the couch. I do have another finished object to share with you, but this finished object is weaving. So I began weaving several months ago, and I started it just thinking, oh, this will be kind of a fun, creative hobby, but much like yarn dyeing, I have found that I love doing it, and I have started selling my woven pieces. I've done a few custom orders, I've done a few quite large pieces, and I'm also doing these round pieces, which I really enjoy. So I finished this piece a few days ago, and this is called Canyon Rose. It has a cream base. Oh, let me get it right side up for you. There we go. It has a cream base with tones of blush pink and rust and burnt orange. I think it's showing a little bit bright on the screen right now. That's a little bit more accurate. So this is a 12-inch round weaving. It's quite substantial, and it has these gold metal sequins on it which catch the light really beautifully, and more than 20 freshwater pearls in their natural organic shape, which is sometimes called a Baroque pearl. And I just love this piece. I really enjoyed creating it. It has a lot of beautiful texture from hand-spun yarns that I added to it, and chiffon, silk chiffon yarn, and recycled sari silk yarn, and cotton rope. This piece was such a pleasure to weave, and if you're interested, it is available in the shop. I'm actually going to throw in shop stuff right now. I am running a sale in my shop for Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday, etc. And you can get 20% off any order over $100 in US dollars by using the code THANKYOU20 at checkout. And that will go through Tuesday, December 3rd. If you would like to take advantage of that, please go ahead. And Canyon Rose is also something that you can use that coupon code on. All of my holiday colors for 2019 are also in the shop. So there you go. That's the shop stuff. Let's do a little bit of chat about what I am reading and watching lately. Got my book. Okay. I've been reading a lot. I've found that if I am working on a simple stockinette project, if it's just stockinette in the round, I am able to read and knit at the same time. If I'm reading on my Kindle, well, my iPad Kindle app, or on my phone in the Kindle app, I am able to read and knit at the same time. I can just sort of like do a little like pinky tap to move to the next page, and that has expanded my reading time enormously. Because before it was always a choice of do I want to read or do I want to knit, and knitting usually wins out because I often will listen to an audiobook and knit rather than read, which I do consider audiobooks to be reading, but it's a different experience for me. So here's what I've read. I finished the first 5 books of the Sweet series by Kate Tiernan, and I did listen to those on Audible. I wanted to listen to this series because my BFF, Jacqueline Salem from Brooklyn Knit Folk, has been recommending them to me for years. They're witchy, sort of a teen romance, but there's also a really interesting aspect of Wicca and witchcraft. It's really an enjoyable listen. The first book I would say was not super to my taste because there wasn't a ton of development of the main character, but as the series went on, the main character became a lot more interesting and a lot more compelling. And I would like to go ahead and read the rest of the series because only the first 5 are available as audiobooks. And I was really enjoying them, so I'd like to finish the series. I think I forget how many books there are, but there are quite a few more. I read The Vine Witch by Luann G. Smith. This was a free book on Kindle Unlimited. I forget what the date was that it was free. It might still be, I'm not sure. But it was very enjoyable. It was about what's called a vine witch, obviously, which it's so difficult to not say witch as in W-H-I-C-H when you suddenly tell yourself to avoid using that word, because otherwise you're going to be saying the word witch very often. So it's about a vine witch who is a witch who lives in a vineyard in France. She helps to create the best grape harvest and ferment the wine to be the best that it can. And she has been cursed, and she thinks she knows who cursed her. I don't want to say too much more in case you read it, but it's a really good book. It's a fun, quick read. There's a bit of mystery, there's a bit of romance. It's definitely on the light and fluffy side, but I think we all need to read something light and fluffy every now and again. I also finished The Dressmaker's Gift by Fiona Valby. This was a fictionalized account of 3 women living in Paris during World War II, and then it went back and forth between their stories and the story of the granddaughter of one of the women. And the 3 women in World War II were working as seamstresses for a couture house in Paris, and in the modern day chapters, I guess, the granddaughter is also working at that same couture house. To be honest, I found the modern day aspect to be a little bit unnecessary. I would have much preferred a more in-depth look at the lives of the three women living in the World War II era, but I can understand why it was maybe necessary to have someone who could narrate and put together all the pieces for the reader. I think maybe though that was why I did not love the chapters in the modern day. I didn't necessarily feel like it was hugely beneficial to the storyline to have a modern day voice coming in and saying, and this is what connects this person and this person, when it was pretty obvious if you looked at the context clues in the historical chapters. Still, it was a pretty good book. You know, it was quite sad at times because it was a World War II novel and these three women were heavily involved in the resistance effort. So that was heavy at times, but I think it is important to remember that time period and to remember everything that led up to it. So next, I actually followed a Kindle recommendation based on the fact that I read The Dressmaker's Gift, and that was called The Rabbit Girls by Anna Ellery. And I don't usually stop reading books in the middle. I can generally finish a book even if I'm not loving it. But this book was very intensely about World War II, specifically in a concentration camp. And it also went back and forth between that time period and the modern time period. And it was just unrelentingly dark. And I found that after I read it, after I would read a couple chapters, I just felt so sad for hours afterward. And it was going beyond what to me is an enjoyable reading experience. I always do want to be moved by what I'm reading, but I did find myself just feeling very sad for the rest of the day after I would read a few chapters, because it would go between the concentration camp and the modern day narrator who was just dealing with so much in her own life, between caring for her dying father and avoiding her abusive husband. It was just a lot to handle, and I actually did abandon that book. Probably wouldn't recommend. I mean, it's powerful. It's a powerful story, but for me, it was too much. Okay, what I'm currently reading. I am doing my yearly reread of The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. This is one of my all-time favorite books, and this copy of it is actually the only thing I've ever stolen. We read this in 6th grade, and I just couldn't give it back. I just couldn't. I couldn't be without this book. So at the end of the school year, I said that I had lost it, and I guess I didn't technically steal it because I paid like $7 or something because I said that I had lost it, but I didn't lose it. I just held on to it. I absolutely love it. If you haven't read an illustrated edition of The Phantom Tollbooth, I would highly recommend it because the illustrations are so evocative and wonderful and so humorous. Here's an example of one of the illustrations. I believe this is one of my favorite chapters. Yes, it is. This is in the chapter The Royal Banquet, which is chapter 7. this is a very clever book. It's full of wordplay, and I think reading it as an adult, you maybe get more out of it than you do as a kid. So I reread this every year, and I am currently rereading it. Speaking of children's books, this morning I was laying in bed and I remembered a book from my childhood that I really loved at the time, and I could picture the cover, but I could not picture the title on the cover. I could just picture sort of the area where the writing is, but I couldn't remember what it was called. So I Googled for probably half an hour and I was able to track it down. And it was called The Fairy Rebel, and it's written by Lynn Reed Banks. And as soon as I came across the title, I was like, oh my gosh, that's it, that's the book. I downloaded a Kindle sample of it, and sure enough, that was the book. I knew it immediately. So I am going to get myself a copy of that book. I haven't decided yet whether I will read it electronically or in analog book format. Probably digitally, just because I'm more likely to actually read it if I can also knit, or if I can read it on the train, or in those little in-between moments without having had to plan for it. So I probably will get the digital version, and I'm really looking forward to that because I remember really enjoying that book as a kid. I actually bought my copy of it as a child after helping my grandmother at an antique show. I used to sell the costume jewelry at my own little table at antique shows when she would be selling, real antiques. So I would get to keep some of the money from that, which was so exciting as a kid. And I purchased a copy of that book from a bookstore, and I felt so grown up purchasing a chapter book with my very own money. It was very exciting, and I'm looking forward to the nostalgic feeling of reading that book again. On a completely different note, I am also reading Essentials of Maha Mudra, Looking Directly at the Mind, by Khenchen Threanu Rinpoche. I'm not certain if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I will write show notes that have the name in it in case you would like to look this up. So I, as I've probably talked about in previous episodes, I am fairly heavily into meditation. I think it's really important. It has improved my life immeasurably in terms of being less emotionally reactive, both in situations with other people and just in my everyday life. It helps me stay calm and focused, and I find that I get a lot more done if I start my day with meditation. And I just feel better, and I feel more connected to the world and all the other people in it and all of the animals and nature. It's just, I could go on and on about how much meditation has improved my life. But so my boyfriend and I were watching videos by a particular meditator whose style I found really resonated with me. It's this concept of unhooking your body from the brain that is constantly looking for a problem to solve, and it really helps you be more in the moment. And I find that it's an approach that works really well for me. The meditator, in case you are interested in looking him up on YouTube, is Locke Kelly. However, I wanted a little bit more depth regarding his methods, because there are so many different ideas of what you should be doing when you're meditating. And while I enjoy that Locke Kelly does not, it feels very accessible, his method, because you are able to kind of just jump right into it. You don't need to do a lot of preparing for it. But I wanted to go a little bit deeper. So John actually got this book, and then I started reading it, and he was kind enough to let me borrow it, and then he got his own copy because I didn't bring it back. Sorry. So we are actually both reading this, and it's a really fantastic book. I find it really interesting. There's a lot of exposition in here about the history of this particular type of meditation, and I find that enjoyable because I like exposition. I like exposition in books. I like exposition in movies. So I find that really enjoyable and interesting. I don't think that I would recommend this for someone just beginning to meditate, but if you have been meditating for a while and you find the Maha Mudra style compelling, then this is a really great book. I enjoyed the show Striking Out, which is on Acorn TV. It's a procedural show based in Dublin, and I love Dublin very much. It is one of my favorite places in the world, so to get to watch a TV show in my favorite genre set there is wonderful. I've also been watching Bones, which is a show about the teaming up of a forensic anthropologist and an FBI agent. I'm enjoying it. It's to be honest, I don't really care about the relationship between the two main characters. I find the forensic aspect really interesting. However, I don't find the relationship between those two characters realistic. But that's just me. It's still a really enjoyable show, and it's one of those shows that went on for something like 11 seasons. So I'm on season 5, and I find it comforting when I know that I have a lot of a show left to watch. I am also doing a series rewatch of Call the Midwife because I find it to be a really cozy show, and I like watching it this time of year. I cry at pretty much every episode though, so I have to pace myself a little bit or else I'll just be like a sobbing mess on my couch. I cry because it's happy, I cry because it's sad. I'm a big crier, and that show just brings it all out. I think that is everything that I wanted to talk about today. I hope that you are cozy and snug on this chilly December day. Or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, I hope you're enjoying springtime, summertime, warm weather, whatever. I hope you're enjoying your season. And I will talk to you again soon. I will be posting Vlogmas videos for the rest of the month, so I hope you will join me on those as well. Bye! Nope. What is that? Is that a real thing? Oh, I was just trying to figure out what that was, but it's just a little symbol on my camera screen. Anyway.